Paw Patrol brooch, and I'm going to be cross-stitch embroidering this little pixel art. So if this combination of sounds and visuals help you in any way, please subscribe to my channel before you fall asleep. Maybe like the video. And if you want, take a look at my Patreon. And thank you so much for all of you guys there helping me out. You're very lovely. Now it is time, as always, to maybe lay back, relax, and give yourself away to the sounds. As I said, the first case is one of Canada's most heartbreaking true crime cases. A case involving a young mother, her innocent child, and a man whose darkness ultimately cost them their lives. This case very much so reminds me, and I think a lot of people, of Chris Watts and what he did. This is the story of Robert Leeming, Robertleeming, Jasmine Lovett, Lovett, and Elia Sanderson, Aliyah. Elia. Jasmine Lovett was a 25-year-old woman living in Calgary, Alberta. She was vibrant, hardworking, and deeply devoted to her 22-month-old daughter, Elia Sanderson. To those who knew them, Jasmine and Elia were inseparable, as you can imagine, of a young mother and their infant. A little family of two, building a life full of promise and possibility. In 2018, Jasmine met Robert Leeming, a 34-year-old British national who had made his home in Canada. At first, things seemed normal between them. He was older, obviously 34, she's 25, but charming in his own way. And Jasmine, like so many, was hopeful about their future and did not imagine what was awaiting them. But beneath the surface, there were signs of control, manipulation, behaviors that slowly and quietly eroded the trust between them. In April of the same year, 2019, stopped responding to calls and messages, and it wasn't like Jasmine to disappear without telling anyone, and she has a young child, so everyone is extra worried. Her family grew desperate, so worried. After days of silence, they reported her and little Elia missing. At first, Robert Leeming cooperated with police. He told them he had no idea where they had gone. Ringing any bells, you guys? Chris Watts. He acted concerned, even helpful. But detectives noticed something strange. There were small inconsistencies in his story. Pauses where there shouldn't have been pauses. Details that didn't quite line up. Yeah, so like it was with Chris Watts, you could see in the videos, it's crazy that you can watch the whole process, break out via the police cam recorder. It is crazy. He definitely looks guilty from the first second, even though he's saying the right things. But I guess humans are really good at, picking up on this stuff. And they are bad liars, these men. And detectives also obviously caught up on it. He would pause, maybe in places that he was thinking of a lie. The more investigators pressed, the more truth began to slip out. On May 6th, 2019, Robert Leeming was arrested, and not long after, he confessed. He led authorities deep into this country that seems very hard to pronounce. Kanaskis, which is a remote, forested stretch of the Canadian Rockies. Kananaskis, maybe. There, unfortunately, in a secluded, rugged area, they found them. Jasmine Lovett and her daughter, Elia Sanderson. Both had been shot to death. Their bodies left hidden among the trees, as if they were nothing, as if they weren't a beloved mother and a child, as if their lives hadn't meant anything to this man at all. Leeming monster. Throughout the trial, more chilling details came to light. Leeming was described as controlling and manipulative, the kind of man who needed power over those closest to him and would destroy them when that control was threatened. In November of 2021, Robert Leeming was convicted on 2 counts of second-degree murder. Interesting. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for 25 years. So you're telling me after that 25 years, he could have the possibility of getting out, which I don't think anyone's going to grant him, but who knows, you hear stuff. It is second degree because it wasn't premeditated, sure, but I don't know. Shouldn't it make any difference when it is a child that young, even it is in the decision in the moment of passion? I don't know. Shouldn't that just grant life in prison? I mean, he is sentenced to life in prison, but I don't know. Even that, no sentence, no punishment could undo the pain that this man caused. No time behind bars will bring back Jasmine and Elia, and no time will heal the heartbreak left in the wake of their loss. Jasmine's family spoke of their grief, of the bright futures that had been stolen. Elia had barely begun to live, and Jasmine, she had so many dreams ahead of her. This case, as it does with a lot of true crime cases that we read through, reminds us that the worst horrors often hide in the most familiar places, behind smiles, behind promises, behind the walls we think are safe. And with that, tonight let's remember Jasmine Lovett and Elia Sanderson. Their lives mattered, and it shouldn't have been taken away, and their stories mattered, and they will never be forgotten. Unlike the killer, which I already forgot the name of. But in the next case that we are talking about, it is the opposite. It is not familiar. The person who hurt these people came out of nowhere and apparently chose these people at random, attacked them in the early hours of the morning on a cold November night, slashed them in their sleep, and left them to bleed. 6-7 hours till the 911 call was finally put in. And that is the story of the Idaho 4 students. Let's see what people.com has for us as an update. It has an article titled Final Hours of Idaho Stabbing Victims Detailed as Judge Denies Attempt by Brian Koberger to Silence Survivors. It was published on April 28, 2025. It says, the judge in Brian Koberger's murder trial is revealing new details about the final hours of the 4 University of Idaho students who were stabbed to death in a no court order. Those new details come from the testimony and text messages of the 2 surviving roommates who were with victims Kaylee Gonsalves and Madison Morgan in the early morning hours, November 13, 2022. So there are these 2 girls that lived, Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk. They are allegedly in 2 different floors. Dylan is on the floor that 2 of the murders occurred. He saw and she is the only witness of a masked man. And now the text messages between these girls are out. Everyone's asking why did it take them so long to call the police. So now let's read. Those texts and testimony reveal that the 4 girls almost went back out again that night, just 2 hours before a masked intruder broke into their home and stabbed 4 people to death. That night, the 4 girls met up in Kaylee's bedroom on the top floor and talked for a while before going to bed. And this is according to the judge, who has the access to all the evidence that they never let out. This was at around 2 a.m. and the order notes that the 5th roommate, Zana Gernodal, was still out with her boyfriend Ethan Chaping, both of whom were also slain on the 2nd floor, which Dylan, the only witness, was on. So this says their roommates debated going out to a food truck for a late snack, prompting Dylan Mortensen to send a text at 2:10 a.m. to an Uber driver she knew to see if I was driving. The order reads, ultimately, however, the girls decided to just go to bed. That's interesting. Dylan Mortensen, one of the surviving roommates, then heard strange noises and crying coming from the bathroom at around 4 a.m. When she went to investigate, she saw a person dressed in black with a ski mask walking by her bedroom door. At that point, she texted response. Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk both discussed how freaked out they were about what Dylan saw and the lack of response from their other roommates. So they are very concerned. But it's interesting, we don't know exactly their relationship. If it was me, I would just, I don't know, actually, would I just go and open the door to check on them? But instead they are in bed texting after they saw a masked intruder and crying sounds, and their roommates are not responding. Well, they might have just thought that they were asleep. I'm not saying they did anything. I think Kohlberger is the guy. But their response, actually their late response might be what gets the conviction for Brian Kohlberger, and I'll get into why that is. The article says at around 4:26 a.m. Dylan Mortensen decided to join Bethany in her bedroom, and while quickly rushing to get downstairs, she unknowingly saw Xana's dead body. Now this is the information that we've never heard before. Right after, maybe minutes after the murders happened, Dylan saw Xana. On her way, Dylan noticed Xana lying on the floor of her bedroom with her head towards the wall and her feet towards the door. Dylan thought Xana was drunk. Now that goes to show us what we are dealing with and how unprepared these young people were to live by themselves. After all of these red flags, you see a person lying on the floor, like there's a bed right there. And you see that your friend is, instead of the bed, which is a small bedroom, the bed is most of the bedroom. But then you see the girl on the floor in a weird position. I just assume she's drunk and passed out, so I'm just gonna go downstairs and sleep. I don't know. The article says the two girls then locked themselves in Bethany's room and spent the next 8 hours trying to get in touch with the victims. So what a horrible night they had. These details were included in a court record, ordered, largely granted, on a request by prosecutors to present the text exchanges between the surviving roommates and about their conversation with each other. Yeah, I guess people were doubting the witnesses, and Kohlberger's defense was trying to say that they were drunk, especially Dylan, so we shouldn't listen to what she says that she saw. But now the judge is coming out and blatantly saying that the witness is a very crucial part of this case, and that it didn't happen the way you think. They were talking, they were scared, and they locked themselves in another room. They thought the worst case scenario was that maybe their friend something happened to their friend. Maybe Zana, she was maybe OD'd on something while being drunk. I don't know what they thought, but this text shows a lot of innocence, I think. It is very bizarre the way they went with it instead of calling the police immediately after seeing a masked man at 4 a.m. But again, maybe that's what had to happen. Alright, the rest of the article goes on to tell us the details that we already talked about in my other Koberger updates, which if you've been following my channel, you already know about. So the trial is set to happen August of this year, and everyone's looking forward to it because there are a lot of details that needs to come out, so that finally people realize that this man is the guy. Why he did it, we don't know, and he's not yet convicted. But the evidence that the prosecution has so far presented show immense guilt. It's not possible for one person to be that unlucky, and it is not like all the evidence is circumstantial. Maybe they have something even more solid that they are not letting out to the defense or public to save for the trial. But anyways, there is this guy named JLR Investigates on YouTube. He's really cool, and he goes and follows the cases as they happen. He was in Idaho right after the murders happened, before anyone knew about anything about Koberger. While people were guessing and speculating about the case and guessing who the killer is, nobody knew anything about Koberger. And his channel has really cool vibes, and he has a lot of good puts on the ground information all the time. And I trust his info that he gets out, because so far he's always come through when he says that he's heard a detail on a case from someone. It always comes out as true. So I'm not saying that it is 100% true, but there is a detail he said he heard is in the evidence that, if true, is going to be a big thing against Koberger. So already there are a lot of confirmed details that doesn't put Brian in a very good light. But this detail, if true, it even makes you more convinced that this man has to be the same masked man in the house, and therefore the killer, because of the DNA on the sheet and the searches and everything else. But now JLR is saying that Koberger searched on his phone about murders on 1122 King Road, which is the address of the murders, or just news about that location, just different buzzwords about crimes and murders about that location. Again, he's a guy from Pullman, Washington, and he crossed the state border at that time. It is like everything is totally against him, and if this is true, that he searched about a murder happening at a place crazed psychic with unfortunate coincidences. You think he woke up, but again, nothing. Everything is against him. There's no good news that comes out, and his defense is having a hard time with the new judge because he's very firm and he doesn't let them waste his time and everyone's time. So this is going better than before, and maybe by August we will get the sentence and the details. Do you guys think Koberger will talk in the trial? I doubt it very much. So far the only words that we've heard from him has been yes, I think. After the judge asked him if he understands, like at the first hearing, and since then he has been silent, and I have a feeling that he is going to be throughout the trial, but we will see. It is a crazy one that